conclude the AGM meeting. I request Professor Nagarajan, our Chief Champion, to please address the audience.
Good evening, and welcome to all from the preeminent institution of technical education in India, IIT Madras. I think I'm going to talk about this institution of eminence right in the beginning and get it out of the way, because I'm hearing so much angst from so many alumni. How could we have missed out? I'm going to put it to you that we are partly to blame. In fact, that's going to be my thesis as I go through this talk. I mean, the process, I've circulated information. I hope you have read the report of the expert committee and the minutes of the UGC meeting. I mean, basically, UGC formulated this committee to identify 10 public institutions and 10 private institutions as institutions of eminence. The committee deliberated for many months. Many institutions prepared 10,000-page proposals and submitted them. A lot of work was done. And finally, the committee came out and said they identified 8 public institutions, in which IIT Madras was ranked number 2, just below IISc in India. Unfortunately, they could only find 3 private institutions, one of which was purely imaginary. And so they submitted the report, and somebody in government decided that the number of private institutions and the number of public institutions should match. So that limited the number of public institutions to 3. Now, so far, actually, things are kind of logical, reasonable, but then UGC, in its infinite, or maybe I should say infinitesimal wisdom, decided that, great, the committee has done a lot of work, thousands of hours, thanks guys, but we're going to throw all of that away. And we're going to spend, I think it probably took them about 21 seconds to sit in front of a terminal and Google and look for QS World University Rankings. And they looked for the top 3 institutions in India. And that's how they picked the 3 public institutions. And we didn't figure in that top 3. Now, to me, that is the interesting part, and I'll come back to that. Now, by the way, I'm sure all of you know the global rankings give 50% weightage to perception, right? Which is why, even though IIT Madras has been ranked 3 times in a row by NIRF as the number 1 institution in India, based on data, hard data, when you throw perception and reputation into the mix, we always trail Bombay and Delhi. Now, to me, this sounds like, what basically happened with the IOE, it's like the BCCI formed a selection committee for the Indian cricket team, and after they had done all their work, the BCCI said, we're going to pick 11 players based on Facebook likes, Or the Nobel Prize Committee deliberated for months and came out with a list of awardees, and the higher-up said, it looks like anyway Donald Trump will get the Peace Prize, but since he also has the most followers on Twitter, we'll give him all the Nobel Prizes, That's basically what it is, right? So clearly the process was flawed, but let's not get into that. What I really want to focus on is there something that we could have done that could have influenced the results? Now, why is it that IIT Madras, even though we are clearly very close to the top in India based on any statistics on research or education or industry consultancy or social impact or incubation, why is it that when it comes to any rankings that bring in reputation and perception, we do so poorly? Well, here again, we have heard lots of hypotheses. Some have blamed the city, some have blamed the weather, some have blamed the airport. We have poor connectivity compared to other cities, so many people don't come to visit Chennai and see our institutions. We can do all that, but I think it's also partly because we, as alumni, have perhaps not done what we could have done to make sure that all the great things that are happening at IIT Madras are communicated outside of our narrow circle. I'm sure we all know that IIT Madras is a great institution. I'm sure we all believe that we should have been in the list of institutions of eminence. Is there anybody who thinks we don't belong in that list? I want to see a show of hands, and I want to have a private session with that person later on to try to convince, not to beat him up or something. What can we do as alumni? So I think the key thing is getting the news out, spreading the news, as I call it. For example, since I took over, I think for the last 10 years, I've been posting news about IIT Madras on a daily basis. I think, let's say I've been here for 10 years, that's 3,650 days. Let's say on average I put out 3 news stories. That's 10,000 stories that I have put out, right? And I'm sure all of you should have received these because the Chennai Yahoo group is one of the groups where I post. So I'm sure you have all been receiving these mails. Now, I always preface these mails with a statement, FYI and circulation. Circulation, that's a key word. So a few years ago, I did a survey. The same groups that I usually post news to, I surveyed them and said, how many of you actually circulate what you get? And the result that I got was very interesting. It was about 1%. Hardly 1% of the people that are even receiving these news items are bothering to send it out to other people. Now just think about it. If each of us were to reach out to 10 people we know and talk about all the great stuff that's happening, it's happening on a daily basis. You know, it's not even once a week or once a quarter, daily. Could it have made a difference? You know, no matter what criteria UGC used, shouldn't we have been there? Shouldn't we have been one of the top 3 institutions in India, even based on the world university rankings? And to me, it's a shame that we weren't. You know, when I go out and I visit universities or I meet with alumni, especially when I go to the pan-IIT type of events, I can see a huge difference between the way, you know, we act and we react compared to the alumni from other IITs, for example. I don't know if it's in our character, but we tend to be very cynical. You know, we say, okay, things are happening, we are happy about it. Whereas I see the Bombay guys and the Delhi guys really getting out there and building up their institution and making sure that everybody knows about how great the institute is. I think we need to do a little more of that. You know, I call it boasting, but boasting nicely. You know, it's not. I know that pride goeth before a fall, but then it looks like in our case the fall went before the pride. And maybe if he had shown a little more pride, maybe the fall would not have happened. I mean, now there are, of course, whispers that, you know, the government will soon redress this and there'll be another list coming out and so on. But you know what a second list always is. It's never as good as the first list. You know, people have these memories. And by the way, the committee has to find at least 1 or 2 good private institutions before we can be added to the list. So maybe one thing we can do to help is, you know, find some private institutions and try to improve their quality so that there'll be more on that side of the ledger and we can get picked also. Anyway, regardless of all that, I think we feel very confident, as the director was mentioning, that we are doing all the right things, and sooner or later, the reputation and the perception part will catch up. But we don't want that latent period to be years. We want it to be weeks. You know, we want people to know as soon as they can. You know, perception especially is done through surveys, and there are two parts to it. One is the peer reputation, and the other is the employer reputation. So I think we can do I mean, people in industry can actually contribute by making sure that, I mean, for example, how many of you are in companies that don't even come to IIT Madras to offer internships or placement opportunities? I would certainly like to urge you, whoever is in industry and who has some control over these matters, to make sure that at least the companies come and take a look at our students. They may decide not to take them, or the students may decide not to join them, but there are many companies that come to Bombay and come to Delhi for placement that never make it to Madras. That again, to me, is a crying shame. We should make sure that our alumni play a very strong role in ensuring that companies come and take a look at our graduating students. And of course, alumni in academia have a huge role to play. And if you go to the US and you look at top universities, so many of the faculty there are alumni of IITs, and certainly IIT Madras has, I would say, a disproportionately large percentage of representatives among the academic ranks. So I'm also trying to urge them to do more. It's not that they have to prevaricate. It's not that they have to invent stories. I mean, it's all there. There's data that says we are doing extremely well. It's just a matter of making sure the news gets communicated and others are brought into the loop. And so that when they receive the survey and they see this list of IITs, I mean, most of their eyes glaze over because they cannot tell the difference between IIT Bombay and IIT Delhi and IIT Madras. And IIT Bombay is right there at the top of the alphabetical list, so they just check off IIT B. In fact, I am suggesting that we should force IIT Bombay to change their name to IIT Mumbai, and we should change our name to IIT Chennai so that we'll be at the top. Right? Maybe that'll have more effect than anything else. But failing that, I think somehow we need to convince people that there is differentiation among the IITs, and there are things that we do very well that we should be recognized for. So I'm going to look to you. I think those of you who are here, all of your friends, those on your networks, and of course all the alumni all over the world that the Alumni Association is doing a great job of building a community of. And I'm going to look for your help so that the next time this happens, and some agency like UGC, which may not be around much longer, but there may be others that come in that place which are just as bad. But the next time they do this exercise, there's no excuse. Whatever way they do it, we are in the top 3 or in the top 1. And I think all of us pulling together can make that happen. So I just want to say very quickly that this is probably the last AGM that I'll be attending in my current capacity as Dean, because I have finished 2 terms as Dean of International and Alumni Relations and enjoyed every bit of it. And of course, before that, I was handling alumni affairs for 4 years. So it's been almost 10 years. And I think it's about time I stepped aside and let some new blood take over and take us in some new and exciting directions. I will, of course, continue to stay involved and make sure that the transition is smooth and all that. I want to thank Madhu for mentioning Alum Night, which happens Thursday, July 19th. We usually do it the day after convocation, but this year we are trying to do the event the night before convocation to get better attendance and participation. It's an exciting event. We are going to be launching 6 chairs, which is the largest number of sponsored chairs that we have ever launched, each one sponsored at about $100,000. So it's a very special occasion. We also have a couple of distinguished alumnus awards that are held over, and we are going to be giving those. And but most importantly, the graduating class will be playing music, the band will be performing, and there'll be an excellent dinner at the end. So I do urge you, it's in CLT, 4 o'clock, Thursday the 19th. No registration is required, although recommended, and I hope to see many of you or all of you there, and there'll be one more chance for you to get together and share your thoughts. And we'll try to provide, many more occasions. I think the synergy between the Alumni Association and the Office of Alumni Affairs and the Development Office has never been stronger, and I only expect that it'll become even more close and glued together in future. And we're also now bringing the IIT Madras Alumni Association of North America and the IIT Madras Foundation into the mix. And they talk about a virtuous cycle and a vicious cycle. I think that we are now in the virtuous cycle. So I do think that we will continue to build on what we have already accomplished. And I see the alumni community, alma mater partnership only growing in stature over the years. So thanks again for coming, and have a great time tonight. Thank you.